It is a Monday, so that means we are live here on the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris, once again behind the scenes for today's show as we cover everything going on around the Dallas Cowboys as we get into the NFL's schedule week. That schedule coming out on Wednesday. We will have the breakdown for you, and if recent history is any indication, it very well might end up getting leaked a couple hours early. Before we get to that, I want you guys to grade the Cowboys running back room. A, B, C, D, or F. Where does it currently sit? I went back and forth of, do I go, because I only got room on 4 for 4 on the pin poll, which you can also vote in. It's like, do I go A/B or D/F? I ended up going with A/B. Based on the earlier results, I think that was the correct decision because A/B have 17%, 36% say C, 29% say D, and 19% say F. So grade the running back room led by Ezekiel Elliot, Rico Dowdle, Royce Freeman, Deuce Vaughn, etc., Malik Davis, whatever. In the comments, someone writes an E for Elliot. That's pretty funny. A, B, C, D, or F in the comments. I will give shout-outs. That's Ecuador man who said E for Elliot, by the way. Zeke from Lil Monk something. Brokov says D. Toxic Tom Downey burner account who... I think he's got Dimitri from Backyard Sports franchise in there as his profile picture. Says F with this garbage scheme. I hope it's better. Tight zone didn't work very well for him last year. D from Brokov. B from Jenkins Gaming. F from Lonesome Cowboy. A from Jacoby Mitchell. C's from Don Wilson, Melvin Morgan, Leroy Pearson. Vince says B, running back should be cheap, so kind of grading on the impact curve and cost curve. I think that's fair. Tario Cowboy says C, Gangweed says D, Ty says D, Joe Vecchio says F, Jim Roll, Tario Cowboy all saying C's. Sack says no such thing as a D or F running back room in the NFL. Okay. Talk Time Dan says run up the gap, no screen passes, no attack the edge. This isn't 1995. Ghost Pod says C, and Eric has trash emojis in there. We will once again spend time on trade rumors. It's been a very popular, just general, article idea out there of trades for all these different teams. Of course, that includes the Cowboys, by the way. So will the Cowboys make a trade before the season? They continue to say, we've got the rest of the offseason to make moves. I have screenshotted all of those takes. I have screenshotted all the quotes from the Jones boys about how, talent acquisitions, a 365 division. You got to the trade deadline. If they don't do anything, I will call them out for it. Because I am not going to let them sit there and say, we can do it later, and then later never comes. I will not stand for that. So if they don't need one, okay, it's a different conversation. Like, if Zeke turns back the clock, if Rico Dowdle stays healthy and balls out, if Deuce Vaughn or Royce Freeman or Malik Davis or whatever play great, okay, that's fine. But if they don't, and it's like, hey, you can't run the ball again, I'll call them out for it. Ones from Leroy Pearson join the DAX side. This goes for defensive tackle room too, by the way. Tar Heel Cowboy. Kobe says they have to, right? I mean, they got 3 roster spots open, and that doesn't really count against their actual money right now. So, it's worth considering. 1 in there. 0 from Brokov. 0 from Mark. 1's from Tar Heel Cowboy. Lil Monk. XO Ortiz says 0. Mark says 0 in there. From the DAX side says 1. Ghost Pod says 2 for I'm not sure. The cop-out answer, but that's fine. It is schedule week, by the way, for the Dallas Cowboys. So who will the Cowboys play week 1 this year? I have my early prediction. I'm going right back to Cowboys-Giants week 1 again. They do it like every year. I think there was a run where it was Cowboys. If not week 1, it'll be week 2. The NFL schedule makers cannot resist. They love putting those two together, week 1, week 2. So, I'll give some shout-outs here. Giants from Colby Roberts. Jenkins says 49ers. Iceman says Giants again, 69% chance. Probably. Eagles, it's not going to be the Eagles, Johnny. They're playing in Brazil week 1. So, they might, maybe week 2 they play, but not week 1. Niners from Ty. Falcons. Commanders, a couple times from Mark and Don. Okay. Falcons, Commanders, Giants, Bucks. Let's see what else we got there. Someone's arguing. I don't know what Seabass and Hillbilly are arguing about, but I'm sure that's been entertaining. Falcons, Commanders, Giants, their fans. Ooh, that's a mean one. Let's see what else we have. That one's very mean, Lonesome Cowboy, actually. I'll shoot my shot and say Giants because the NFL was nothing if not creative at all. Giants, Saints, Panthers. CT ESPN is not on a generational run, to be clear. They are absolutely not. They have put so much stuff out that at some point you're just going to get lucky. Now, Ricky's on a generational run. The salary cap, oof. Take Green Bay. Oh boy, that's start the year with like Green Bay or San Francisco. It's like, okay, you're just getting over those demons early or facing them early, I guess. I actually wouldn't mind playing the Niners in week 1. It's week 1. Weird stuff happens. You lose, it's okay. It's a lot better than like, you lost the Niners week 7. It's like you don't have faith in them. It's week 1. They'll be okay. Now, prediction time. Will the Cowboys win the NFC East? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section of this video. The curse is that you don't win back-to-back years in the NFC East. Never happens. Somebody else wins it. I don't think it's going to be the Giants this year. Probably goes back to Philadelphia again, and then maybe the Commanders or Giants win it next year, or Dallas gets back on track. So will they win the NFC? I'm saying no. There's been a couple years in a row where you've had great success just picking Cowboys and Eagles money lines to win the division because they were all like plus 130. So it's guaranteed win, even as small as that profit outcome was. It's basically a bet against the Giants and the Commanders. Always a good bet because they're bad. Eric says yes, 85%. Ghost Pod says yes, but history makes me worried. Join the Dak side says yes. Hillbilly says yes for big hopes. What you doing says hell no. Colby says Eagles taken it. XO says M, which I assume means for maybe on that front there. Leroy Pearson says no. Canisto says yes. Brokov says yes. Johnny says yes. Colby says no. So I think more yeses than nos. I have not done any like projected stuff. We'll do the record prediction stuff after the schedule comes out. That'll be the Thursday video for you guys. No live, by the way, this week on Thursday. But I am not optimistic about their NFC East chances. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be an NFC East champion, though, again. Although, a long time last year, looked like it wasn't going to be the case, and then the Eagles choked it. So who knows what could happen this time around. Now, the goal this week is to have the most likes on the among the Chat Sports channels. I think we do a pretty good job of that overall. We are the betting favorite, right? But we do need the help on the live side of things. So like the video if you haven't already. We're not that far away from the always coveted 50% like ratio. Help us out by getting there on today's show. Like this video if you haven't already done so. Coming up on today's live edition of the Cowboys Report, we'll break down some Cowboys news and rumors, what's being discussed, mentioned, floated out there as we get through rookie minicamp. OTAs coming next week. Some Cowboys trade targets as well. A mailbag, 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys or super chat to skip the line, which, by the way, nobody's super chatted yet. That makes me sad. And we'll break down some Cowboys free agency rumors for you. All coming up live here on the Cowboys Report. The most liked video since around the draft was, or at least free agency, was Giants Now with 1,766. I want to beat that number right here today on the Cowboys Report. I think our goal should be 1,776 because of America and America's team. So let's beat that number. Everybody like today's show for me right now. Among other comments made, endearing-ish rookie minicamp were some comments made by head coach Mike McCarthy, kind of detailing the plans at running back. And I have seen some questionable headlines from this of like only parts of it were used, and it led to like different interpretations of how things are going to be utilized or players be utilized. I think that's not really fair. So we'll break down the entirety of the quotes here. Here's what Mike said. Asked, like, is Zeke going to have the same workload as he did last time? He goes, I don't think that's fair. The guy carried the ball more than anybody in the history of football the first couple of years. That's not going to be his role. We're running back by committee, but I think he'll definitely play at the level that he's played. I know in my time here. I anticipate that. I don't see any drop-off in the way he moves. 17 games is a lot of football, Mike said about the running back room in general. That's a big role for these guys. Don't get me wrong, they'd all like to carry it like the old days and have all these touches, but you'll want those guys fresh at the most important time of the year. That's all part of the planning and how you look at the projections of playing time. That very clearly it's by committee, in his own words to me. I saw some headlines saying, Cowboys going to use Zeke exactly how they did previously, based on the back half of Mike's quote, when he also straight up said he wasn't going to. So that kind of annoys me, although it's just like, that's not what he said. How do you get that? How is that your headline? This running back room has to be by committee as it sits right now, because it's not good enough. I think Rico Dowdle's your most talented back on the roster. Elliott's getting paid the most. You know, relative outside of Zeke, I suppose, to investment, Deuce Vaughn was the higher draft pick. In fact, it's former first-round pick and cut and moved on from twice in Dallas and New England, now back in Dallas, Elliott. UDFA, Deuce Vaughn, fourth-round pick, career journeyman, I think it was fourth-round pick, Royce Freeman. UDFA, fifth-round pick who got cut, UDFA. One guy on this roster who was drafted by the same team that he's currently on and hadn't played for somebody else. That's Deuce Vaughn, which is kind of crazy. Royce Freeman, Malik Davis, Lipke is a fullback / running back hybrid right there. We'll see if Snoop Connor, Nate Pete emerge into anything. I get some 2018 wide receiver room vibes here. Remember that room where it was like, Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, we lost Des Bryant. We got Deontay Thompson, we're fine. And they got like 6 games and went, oh God, we made a mistake. And they had to trade for Amari Cooper, and that was a huge boost to the offense because they had somebody not named Cole that could actually get open on offense. I will say, at least it's running back and not receiver this time. I think from a value perspective, from an investment perspective, if you were going to do it at one of those spots, running back makes way more sense. So you can grade this on a curve if you so see the need to based on the money invested and or how much you should be investing at the spot. But how would you grade this Cowboys running back room? A, B, C, D, or F. It is the pinned comment on today's video. The ad comes on YouTube. Take advantage. Head down there and go vote. I give this room maybe a C. And I still maintain it is probably the worst running back room in the NFL. I would have very much liked to be proven wrong there. Elliott is the most expensive back on the roster in terms of what he's making this year, up to $3 million, $2 million base. That's more and more guaranteed than they gave Rico Dowdle. I don't think that stuff should be overlooked. When in doubt, always follow the money. But he's got 1,000-yard campaign, and it took him over 230 touches. I think, at least what the Cowboys are kind of pushing is, hey, we don't want Zeke to be a 200-carry guy. We don't want him above 150. It means he's not going to rush for 1,000 yards. But if it gives you short yardage, pass protection, red zone stuff, that's fine. But if you give him the ball 200 times, it's going to be an issue for me, as far as I'm concerned. Rico Dowdle, meanwhile, I thought should have had a bigger workload last year. I thought there were times, especially in short yardage, third down stuff, he actually played very well. I think he offers a little bit more juice than some of the other guys on this roster, but he's also never really stayed healthy, and that's a concern for me. And then the Cowboys aren't paying him anything either. Deuce Vaughn was a 6th-round pick out of Kansas State. He's got some short area quickness stuff. He's got some pass-catching value, but he doesn't help you on special teams. And does this team need RB 3 or 4 to help in that area? We'll see. Royce Freeman, meanwhile, does help on special teams. Actually did play pretty well down the stretch last season, unlike what the Cowboys have pushed about other players, for example. But he's also been a career journeyman. This is his fifth team fifth team in 5 years. That's not good. That's not something you trust moving forward. Hunter Lipke, we all would have felt better about the red zone if Lipke didn't fumble after Pollard got stuffed because they were mad at Pollard, so they benched Pollard and put Lipke in, and he fumbled it away. It was all kind of, they let their feelings get in the way, I think, a little bit there. Short yardage back, fullback, kind of overlaps with Zeke a little bit there. Maybe more fullback John Kuhn will remain his role in 2024. Now, today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick more, pick less. It's that simple. 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you make your picks correctly, all of them, you win the power play. Or what I always advise is the flex play. That way you can get one wrong and still come out on top. I won't always do the flex play. In fact, I'm not doing it for today's slate. More on that in a little bit. That's because they're giving you the free square. It's Caitlin Clark, half a point in her season debut on Tuesday. She might get that on the opening possession, quite frankly. It will hit. So I'm going to pair that with P.J. Washington, more than 23.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He's been playing well. I like the Mavs in this game. I think they take care of the Thunder. And I'll go with Jason Tatum, bounce-back game against the Cavs as an overall team. More than 44 points, rebounds, and assists. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. Let's talk trade rumors. A to Z Sports suggesting, hey, maybe Dallas could go trade for Commanders defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. Because remember, Commanders drafted Johnny Newton, who, as we'll get into, I think that pick is now negatively impacting the trade chances of Allen, meaning it's not likely he's going to get moved. But first, the trade idea from A to Z Sports was the Cowboys get Allen, Commanders get, quote-unquote, multiple day 3 picks. What does that mean, you ask? It's a good question. I would assume a 4th and a 5th. So I have thoughts on this. Would you do that trade, knowing you got to pay Allen a good amount of money this year and more likely give him a long-term extension? Y for yes, N for no. Would you do that trade? Sound off in the comments. I would do that trade so fast, and I would extend Allen as well, which the Cowboys are scared about paying players, but I would do it. I don't think Washington would, and I would have my doubts about the Cowboys doing it because of the long-term contract status of this team. They don't want to pay money right now. By the way, Johnny Newton hurt his other foot now, so I don't think they're going to trade him. Allen has been a productive football player. The numbers don't always pop off the screen in terms of sacks, but hey, turns out when your team is bad and you can't rush the passer, your sack numbers are going to be a little bit lower. This Cowboys team at defensive tackle, right, maybe even just behind running back, I don't like this spot. I like Osa Odigizua. I'm not out on Mozzie Smith. Chauncey Golston, a 7th-round pick, and Justin Rogers. I mean, if Osa goes down, this is the worst defensive tackle room in the NFL, if it's not already. You need to get help there. And the Cowboys have done next to nothing. A 7th-round pick and a UDFA, that was it. I was kind of surprised they invested that little in the DT room. You know, they haven't replaced the snaps that they've lost up front because you can't give Osa more. He already gets tired enough as it is as the season goes along. You'd also, though, have to pay Allen conservatively $25 million a year. I don't think that one's going to happen for Dallas. Now, I think Allen is a top 10 tackle, so I'd pay it. That's the market. I don't think it's a likely outcome there. And look, you'll be able to rotate some guys inside, especially on passing downs, but if the plan is to put a 270-pound defensive end at defensive tackle on first and 10, that we've been down that road, it does not work. Now, the Cowboys Report is your go-to place for Cowboys content all off-season long. If you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. We're going to do this one. It was actually sent to me by a follower, and I was surprised they floated it out there. Fansided suggested the Cowboys trade for Chiefs wide receiver Kadarius Toney. The trade idea from Fansided, and I'll give them credit because they pointed out the Cowboys don't have a 7th-round pick. Good job there. was Chiefs get a 6th-round pick in 2025. Let's pretend it's one of the future comp picks. Here's why I am so far out on this idea. He sucks. Kadarius Toney is not a good football player. The man's got more drops than touchdown catches in his NFL career. That's a huge red flag. That's like, hey, you know what? He can't catch. Kadarius Toney has gotten worse every single season of his NFL career. He's got 9 drops. This is all per Pro Football Reference. PFF might have more, I don't know. He has 9 drops in 3 seasons against 3 touchdowns. When you are a former first-round pick, do you know how hard it is to have triple the drops as touchdown catches? The Giants gave him like 19 games or 12 games. Like, nope, we're out. Bye. See ya. Don't want you anymore. He's gotten worse every year. He just makes mistakes. I have zero. I talked to our Giants host, Marshall, now. We're talking about Toney. I'm like, look, man, I'm worried he's a screw-up. I used a different word than screw-up. I used a more vulgar word. I'm like, that's my concern. That's what he's been. He's a screw-up. I don't want him in Dallas. So let's bring back my most loved/hated comment idea out there. Because what always happens is I forget about this. I forget that I asked this, and then I'll come back 2 days later and I'll see you like, what do you do? Oh, it's because I asked for bad trade ideas. Trigger me in the comment section with some bad Cowboys trade ideas. One quick news item here before we go. The Cowboys will not be adding Mike Hohensee, or Hennessy. I'm just going to call him Hennessy. It's not what it is, but I think it's more fun. Hennessy, and that's what we would have called him if they'd signed. After his tryout, pretty sure it's pronounced Hohensee, but whatever. I've said it like 4 different times now. Mike McCarthy had praised him for his command of the huddle at the tryout. Dallas is not going to add him in the end. They could always revisit that. I don't think he's going to have any real interest in terms of other teams, but who knows? Injuries happen there. Main reason being, well, it's what we mentioned. The Cowboys want to give Trey Lance reps. They need to have him out there, and he is going to get all of those like second-string reps when it's not rushed, third-string reps. He's going to play. Honestly, I would play Trey Lance every snap of the preseason. I don't need to see Dak out there. I don't think we're going to. Do I need to see Cooper Rush out there? No, I know what he is. I would put Trey Lance out there constantly. Let's give some shout-outs here. Trigger me with some bad trade ideas, which I'm sure will be entertaining as we get to some of those. But first, some Super Chats here from Mark. $5. This is Mark's carrying the load of the Super Chats today. Thank you, Mark. I'm not too enthusiastic. Tyler Guyton will not be better over Tyron Smith. Was not a fan of Biotish, but a rookie center will not be better than him. The right tackle should be better. I would definitely agree on Steele. I think another year removed. In theory, you had the return to play. Now you get back to the return to performance. I very much agree on the Tyler Guyton in year 1 probably will not be better than healthy Tyron Smith in year 1. Now, relative to the money you're paying him, maybe you can get closer there. You also didn't spend anything, so it kind of goes out the window. I am very optimistic about Cooper Beebe, but I do think Mark makes a very good point, and I will do my best to remind everybody, rookie players have ups and downs, so it's not going to be perfect right away. Also from Mark, $5, Osa was he meant hyped, hype guy in my opinion. He's supposed to be getting pressure, and he has 11 to help. I don't expect 10 sacks a year, but 9 sacks over 3 seasons. My big issue with Osa Odighizuwa, we'll go more in depth on this on a future video. I'm going to go position by position to an extent. Is this, he kind of starts hot and fades. And I don't know if it's too many reps early on or what, or the lack of other interior help, because there hasn't been much there help. There have been edge help, a ton of interior help. I don't see the consistent play early in the year versus later in the year. I'm still open for the real breakout from Osa, which, by the way, if it happens, they will lose him because he'll get paid $20 million in free agency, which is fine. I'd rather have that outcome. For Mark, best situations we get Coach Bell. Lance improves and becomes a poor man's Dak. We re-sign players and surround Lance with a ton of talent with money saved. I do think in terms of the post-Dak scenarios, I think maybe not Coach Belichick specifically, but I think they'd give first crack to Trey Lance. My other big issue here is this. The Cowboys have shown time and time again they won't spend in free agency. Even if the quarterback's cheap, they won't do it. So this is a very good plan. My concern is they wouldn't actually do it. They'd be like, we'll see. And they just won't spend. All right, back to the weigh-in here of Trigger Tom with bad trade ideas. Trade Josh Ball for Mahomes was bad trade idea. See, Jenkins Gaming sticking with Operation White Lie. Josh Ball is the best football player in human history. They can't trade him. Third round pick for a kicker. I think that one won already. I know it's triggering me, and that one, oh God, I would jump. Toaster troubles there. Vince says Bryce Young for a second and a third. Sack says next year's first for Rashee Rice and Kadarius Toney. What was the prison team and then the longest yard? The meme machine, it's them. Rashee Rice, do not touch the grass, just stay inside. Micah for Miles Sanders and a fourth. Oh boy. Let's see. First round pick for the rights for Bruce Arians. Dan says future seventh Brooks. Well, that's actually a good idea. Like, I'm fine doing that. It's a seventh, whatever. First round pick and Dak for a punter and 4 seventh rounders. 4 picks outweigh 1 picks, right? I think that makes sense. Mark has this to say, by the way, another $5 super chat. Mark is clearly the MVP today. If Lance improves, that's a big if. Redoing contracts, saving $20 million from Dak would be insanely good with Coach Belichick. Dak's just not worth $55 million. Jerry Jones is a clown. I would say this, by the way. Belichick loves Dak. He has always been a big fan of him. I also wonder, because of just the overall security, how coaches, including Belichick, would view this job if it was Dak versus Lance. And they also might not know that when the job is open. So I'm going to be very intrigued how that all plays out in the offseason. But it's the offseason. If you have not already, please follow the Cowboys Report on Instagram. We'll put that link in the comment section. Should be in the description of today's show as well. At Cowboys Report IG, we are 140 away from 1,000 followers on our Instagram page. Our Dolphins one is gaining ground. I don't like that at all. So let's make sure we continue to push past them. Go follow us on Instagram at Cowboys Report IG. Ryan Nelson, Tom, after last year, I'm bored with Dallas. Rebuild. Rebuilding would have been a fine path. Honestly, it might not have been what I would have done, but it at least puts you with a plan in place. My concern is that by doing nothing really this offseason, Dallas is going to, make a worse team, win a couple less games regular season, make the postseason, go one and done again, and then have to rebuild next year and be a year behind in the rebuild with worse positioning overall. That's my concern. Very much is my concern there. Another $5 super chat from Mark says, best trade. Dak agrees to a trade. We get a LA/Detroit trade. Yes, I know I'm fantasizing. Jerry won't sign free agents. How about trade for Tom for GM? 10 years and I win a title. I promise you, if you make me owner/GM. Promise you I will win a title. Or I will sell the team to not the Joneses. I'll sell it to somebody who will care about the franchise and win. Or, maybe I'll make it a for-profit enterprise. Something like that, which might actually be a bad idea because then NFL doesn't want that on the books, actually. They probably would not allow that one. I do think that window closed, by the way. That would have been work with Dak this offseason to make that happen. I think there would have been teams interested, for sure. You kind of missed the boat on that one. And my concern is that you'll just do nothing and he'll have another great year, top 10 quarterback play and one and done in the postseason, whether his fault or not, and then he gets paid $65 million from somebody else, and you get a third-round comp pick. That also means you won't spend because you don't want to get it canceled out. That's my concern. We're talking trades on today's Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. Happy to have you guys along for the ride on today's show. NFL draft is over. Of notes here, before we get into some 10 different trade ideas and targets I've got here. Cowboys, have extra 2025 draft picks. They're going to have projected 4 additional comp picks, and the 5th and 6th rounds. 3 extra roster spots right now, which you can make more if you need to. They have, for the time being, $4 million in cap space. That number will grow as they get the $9.5 million from Michael Gallup off the books. So they will have salary cap space, knowing they're going to want to roll over maybe $8-ish million of that, because that's how they do business. So before we get to my names, put your Cowboys trade targets in the comments of today's show. Who do you want the Cowboys to go out and acquire? Sound off in the comments section. Let's go to a couple receivers. I won't go more than 2 on any one position because we did one of those already. Treylon Burks, I think, is a name to keep in mind here. To be blunt, he has been bad. He has struggled in 2 years with the Titans. He is now wide receiver 4 on their depth chart. He is behind Calvin Ridley. He is behind DeAndre Hopkins. He is behind Tyler Boyd. He's due if the Cowboys trade for him, $4.67 million over 2 years. That's not that bad at all. It's a little bit more than what you're going to have to pay Jalen Tolbert. That's fine from a money perspective. It's really, do you still want the player? Remember, Dallas had a top 25 grade on Burks the year he came out and went 18th overall to Tennessee, mind you. But he's been bad with the Titans. I'm sorry, there's no way around it. He, frankly, has been a bust so far. But much like the trade for Trey Lance, Cowboys had a high grade on a player. They said, let's explore this idea. Let's bring him in. 2 years of development and see what happens beyond that. You do something similar there for Brooks. I'd say it costs you, or Burks, maybe it costs you a 5th round pick. Maybe that's doable for all sides involved there. Next up is Alec Pierce, the wide receiver from the Colts. And I didn't put him on our last receiver conversation. I'm going to go a little bit higher in terms of the aim on this one. He has the things that you don't have a lot of on this roster, namely speed and vertical threat ability. Now, I think he's lost his job to another 2nd round pick in A.D. Mitchell. I think it's Pittman, Mitchell, and Josh Downs as the big 3 in Indy. He's pretty cheap, 2 years, $2.91 million. I think the trade cost would be a bit more expensive because compared to Treylon Burks, he's basically doubled his production in the 2 years he has been a member of an NFL franchise. I liked Pierce coming out. Now, he has a lot of the traits that I tend to like in receivers. The size is there, 6'3", 211, 4.41 40-yard dash. For a team that doesn't have many obvious, speedy vertical threat receivers, maybe Ryan Flournoy can be that guy. Pierce does stand out to me as an intriguing name if the Colts are willing to deal him. I'm not so sure they are because he is pretty cheap and he'd at least be receiver 4 for them. So will the Cowboys make a trade before the season? 1 for yes, 0 for no. It is the pinned comment on today's video. The ad comes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Ignore the ad. Go type in 1 for yes, 0 for no. Let's go to DeMarvin Leal. A common trend on today's video, players who have not quite lived up to expectations. Former 3rd round pick out of A&M, has not played at the level you would have liked him to play. He is a former 3rd round pick. He does give the team depth at a spot they need depth. That's defensive tackle. And Pittsburgh has lots of it available. 2 years for $1.3 million a year. Very affordable for a team like Dallas. The production is simply not there, though. 29 tackles, 3 TFLs, a sack, 4 PBUs. This is also a potential name to monitor depending on what happens with the Steelers come roster cut-down time. They've added players. They've added Dean Lowry. They drafted Logan Lee. The numbers might be on the wrong side for Leal, so I think you get him pretty cheap. I didn't expect to put Draymond Jones on this list. I changed my tune when I saw the report from Monday, or Sunday, whatever day the report actually came out, but I saw it on Monday, that the Seahawks are trying Draymond Jones at edge rusher, even though he's like 290 pounds, or at least he was. That is a clear sign of, we script this contract, we don't like him, but we're paying him so much money, we got to try something here. Seattle were to save $11.5 million with a post-June 1st trade. They cannot cut him with the way his contract is guaranteed. It's not doable there. He got a big fat contract last offseason. If I were Dallas, I would not be paying 2 years, $28 million for him after he didn't have a great season in 2023. If Seattle wants to eat some of that money, I will happily take Draymond Jones. As a rotational 3 technique, I don't think this team has enough horses. I think they are thin at that spot. His numbers dropped off fairly significantly. I thought he kind of got overpaid from coming from Denver to Seattle, by the way, in 2023. But I think interest there, if Seattle eats the money, could actually make some sense. All right, running backs. We won't spend too much time on this because we've spent so much time on it as is. I'm going to pick my 2 favorite ones of like the dozen guys we've discussed here on the channel. I begin with Khalil Herbert. 1-year deal, owed $1 million, and has shown more the past 2 years than about 90% of the guys on your roster from a game-to-game basis have. Herbert, as an early down runner, offers value. He's not a great pass protector. The Bears didn't trust him in pass catching very often either. Good news. You have those guys who can do that. Dowdle, Zeke, and even Deuce Vaughn. Those things are doable for you. So I think Herbert in a committee is a really good fit for what the Cowboys lack right now at the running back spot. Trade targets is something we have done for the running back room overall already. I got 10 names on that list, more in depth. You can check out that video. It is available on the channel. And if the Cowboys make a trade, we will have you covered. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV for more free Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos. Another cheap option who I think, again, fits that rotation theory pretty well is Israel Abanikanda out of, or from the Jets with, I think there's like a weird thing going on. Like his traps aren't actually that huge. But he's a very physical build and offers the speed this team does not offer, or does not have, I should say. Israel Abanikanda was a big play threat at Pitt, offered some big-time juice as well, some speed that you just don't have on this roster. He's in that 216-ish range, by the way, from an athletic perspective, and tested impressively well. He's got legitimate track speed. I mean, he offers the speed that this team really does not have. And I think that would be an intriguing fit for Dallas. Plus, I liked him quite a bit coming out. I like the athletic ability that he offers in that 4.4, 4.3 range there speed-wise. I think he'd be a good committee fit for the running back room. So will the Cowboys trade for a running back? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and get those predictions in for me in the comments section of today's video. I'll mention a couple linebackers. I think they're in better spots than what they are now. Malcolm Rodriguez. He flashed in 2020 for Detroit and then kind of got buried on the depth chart. Dallas did like him coming out. In fact, had he been on the board when they took Devin Harper all those years ago, I think Rodriguez would have been the pick. I think the Cowboys kind of got sniped a little bit there. You don't owe him anything. 2 years, just over $2 million. Like, you trade for him, and relative to the rule of 51 salary cap for the offseason, you're paying an additional $400,000, if that. He's got 100 career tackles, by the way, 8 TFLs. He just kind of got buried on a Lions team that maybe even overinvested in the linebacker room. So I would have some interest there because at minimum, I feel so much better about my linebacker 5, if not my linebacker 4 and 3 for the Dallas Cowboys. I'll make note of Jamin Davis here. Look, the Commanders have added multiple linebackers because, again, it wasn't a Dan Quinn thing that he didn't want linebackers. It was that the Cowboys front office didn't want to do it that way. They've added Frankie Luvo. They added Bobby Wagner. They signed Mecole Walker, who was a Dan Quinn guy. They drafted Jordan McGee in the 5th, and they still have Jamin Davis. Like, he's got 1 year left on his deal. They declined the 5th-year option. I think he's available. Now, I think he's more of a weak side linebacker. You might think you're in okay shape because you already have DeMarvion Overshown in that role, but Davis didn't play that much last year. He's never produced in the way that he was expected to as a first-round pick. So if you can go with the old, I call it the Will McClay special, right? Early round pick, didn't play that great. Let's see if a change of scenery helps. Normally, a pretty cheap cost at that, mind you. What do you think is the biggest need left for the Cowboys? Sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. Let's put a big fish out there. How about Budda Baker? I don't know if safety's even a need for this team because you have 3 guys you can play, plus Wanye Thomas. I think you're in good shape there. But if you wanted to go for the big splash addition on defense, which you didn't really do this offseason, maybe you give Arizona a call about Budda Baker. He's looking for a new deal. He's been in trade rumors / trade demands, etc. I think that is something to consider. And he would be an instant impact player, I think, giving you the type of chess piece safety that Mike Zimmer typically likes at that position. I would also caution, he's played in fewer games each of the past 2 seasons. His impact play numbers have gone down a little bit as well, and he might be too expensive for this team. I know his eyes lit up when he saw that Antoine Winfield deal. He ain't going to get the Winfield deal, but it did raise the bar, I think. One more name I haven't seen really anybody else mention. I don't think we should sleep on Lewis Cine. That is the safety from Minnesota. When the Cowboys took Tyler Smith, when they leaked that draft board, or their draft board, quote unquote, Lewis Cine was rated above Tyler Smith. He was the only player on the board the Cowboys had as a first-round grade above Tyler Smith. Nobody else, it was Cine. Lewis Cine was the top-rated guy left. In part because of injuries, he has not played for Minnesota. He's got 10 games with 1 tackle. A player the front office liked years ago who could potentially be a buy low piece to improve their back end for a guy they loved coming out, I think that one should not be overlooked. Let's go to some predictions here for the upcoming schedule release on Wednesday. We will have the video for you guys on that when it comes out Wednesday. Who will the Cowboys play in Week 1? I will shoot my shot and say it will be the Giants because wouldn't that just make sense? I would assume over the next 48-ish hours, we start getting some real leaks, some updates from that perspective, and figuring out who's out there, and at least I think at minimum who the Thanksgiving game is. I'd be a little surprised if we didn't know that one before we get to that Wednesday release in the afternoon there. So get those predictions in. Who will the Cowboys play in Week 1? $2 from Mark. Tom, they are doing nothing. Clown show. It's true. Mark, again, is not wrong. The Cowboys have not done anything. It's been very frustrating for me to just sit there and go, okay, they're doing nothing. I hate it. We are going to get to our mailbag coming up here in just a little bit. There are 2 ways to get on the show. Number 1, you can be like Mark and Ryan Nelson and super chat. That helps you skip the line. You are guaranteed to get on the show at some point if you super chat. Or simply use hashtag Cowboys. That puts you in the queue for producer Chris to find your question, bring it up on screen, etc. But hashtag Cowboys or super chat to get on the show. We've got a super thanks to begin today's Cowboys Report mailbag from my guy CJ DeYoung III, referencing what I said on the perfect remaining offseason plan. Says, let's pretend that's it. Whatever you want to happen, pretend that's it. I'm tired. I'm not fighting about Dak anymore. Love it. You demand. Tom for GM. Thank you, CJ. My offer stands, Cowboys. 10 years. Make me owner. I guarantee a title, or I will sell the franchise and profit the money. But still, I will do it out of the goodness of my heart. Super Thanks is a feature here on YouTube. Obviously, Super Chats are the live side. Super Thanks are the on-demand version. You can edit your message, send in whatever you want to send in there, We appreciate your support in literally keeping the lights on here at Chat Sports. Any super thanks, even ones not as praiseworthy as CJ's, will get a shout out. You can test me. You can say, Tom, you suck, and a super thanks, and I promise you it will go on the show. From Mark, I'm not too enthusiastic. Tyler will not be a better player than Tyron Smith. Was not a fan of Biotish, but a rookie center will not be better than him. The right tackle, Terrence Steele, should be better. When it comes to the offensive line in general, it's less about week one for me, more how they're playing at the end of the year. Because you're right, there are going to be ups and downs. And I think especially you have to anticipate that Guyton will be up and down in year one. And it will take Cooper Beebe some time to acclimate. The one thing I think will help Beebe more than anything, a lot of times centers can tend to struggle with the mental side of it, of I got to make the protections now and the calls, and it's info overload. Your quarterback, relative to most in the NFL, puts a disproportionate amount on his own plate. He handles so much of that. I mean, go watch him anytime pre-snap. He's doing it all. And I think that will make it an easier transition for BB early on, and as the year goes on, maybe you put more and more on his plate. Terrence Steele should be better another year removed from his injury, I hope. Daniel, you think Zeke will average more than 4 yards per carry with Guyton and Beebe? I hope so. And if Zeke gets to 4 yards a carry, I will be very happy. Because that's a half yard per carry more than he did last year, and it's in line with what he's been the last 3 years of his NFL career. 3 years in Dallas, I should say. I will say this too. Guyton needs time. I think Beebe's going to help a lot, but if this offensive scheme is just go up the middle, he's going to get 3.6 yards per carry. Maybe 3.7 or 3.8 because it's not going to be a clever enough scheme. And if they do give him a bunch of short yardage stuff, it's going to hurt the average. I will probably pay more attention to Zeke in particular with stuff like success rate because I want to see if he's converting those short yardage stuff. From Stan, Doy, you have interest in Alvin Kamara after June 1st. That's very mean, but that's just how I wanted to pronounce it there. Frankly, I don't. He's owed a lot of money, and we mentioned decline in backs, right? Alvin Kamara is declining. I think some of that juice is gone. He was a PPR machine in fantasy, but it was all short shit. And maybe that was the offense, maybe it was the offensive line. The impact player we saw at the start of his career hasn't been there for a couple years in a row. The results not been very good, by the way, in terms of efficiency there either. So would you trade for Alvin Kamara? T for trade, P for pass. It is the pinned comment on this video. You should know what that means. Go vote at the pinned comment if an ad plays here, T or P. For Mark, Tom, I will become, oh boy, this one might can be canceled. It's Mark's super chat. I will become a non-binary person who watches The View daily before Jerry Jones does anything. I seriously don't know what his plan is. What is your guess? The plan is, we'll see. The plan at its core is they want flexibility. They want flexibility in case they don't pay Dak Prescott, in case they don't get a deal done with them. Steven straight up said they had to plan, or maybe it was just a report from David Moore, which is the same thing, that they have to plan as if they're not paying Dak, Lamb, or Micah. And that is such an ass-backwards way of going about your business. You don't plan for not paying your best players. Either, or maybe not. Either plan for paying them or plan for not. They crave so much flexibility and the ability to do something if they had to, that it limits their short-term ability to actually do things, and they don't actually do anything either. So they just want to be in the middle. They want to sit on that fence. They want to be a 9 to 10 win team every year and see what happens. And if they lose the quarterback, the range of outcomes gets really crazy. From Leroy Pearson Jr., how many unexpected players make the team this year? It's a good question. Your depth is kind of shaky at a few spots. That's where you could have some chaos stuff happen there. I'll phrase it like beyond the draft picks, players who weren't on the roster last year or guys that were practice squad players, over under 5.5, somewhere in that range. We'll do a roster projection, so stay tuned for that. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 6 player stat projections, pick more, pick less. That's it. That's all you have to do to make some nice money over on PrizePicks. You can do the NBA postseason, NHL postseason, WNBA with some Caitlin Clark action, of course, going on there as well. NFL season-long picks, esports, they've got you covered. Now, unless you're doing one of the demons or goblins or you're doing one of the free squares they give you occasionally, I love the flex play. If I get one wrong, I'm okay. I still come out on top because I can get 3 out of 4 right. My season-long NFL PrizePicks slate give me more than passing yards from Mahomes and Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, 9.5 touchdowns, more than there, and more than 12.75 sacks for Micah. All of those numbers are less than what they did last year. Kind of already building in the injury risk. So I'm going with the more than and the flex play. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Juan Ramos, when is the preseason schedule released? Normally, right around the same time the NFL schedule ends up getting released as well. We'll see if we leak it this year. Sometimes we get the leak, sometimes we don't. Or at least we'll be close enough to figuring things out there. But we will break it down for you here on the channel. Plus a record prediction as well. Leva Jet Life? I'm not sure how to pronounce that first one there. Sorry there. LGL. DT, running back, wide receiver, linebacker, our biggest weaknesses. If we sign Gilmore, our cornerback room would be solid. I think the quarterback room is solid, but I would feel great about it if they found a way to bring back Stephon Gilmore. Daniel M. Sign Hunter Renfrow on the cheap. Should have that list for cat there, Chris. Sure, it's fine. My mindset is like, okay, does that really change things for you? I actually am a bit surprised Renfrow's still unsigned, but he's been straight up bad for 2 years in a row. He has not been productive at all. Now, I think the coaching staff gets a lot of blame there, but that 2021 season looks more and more like an outlier than anything else. And if I'm going to play CeeDee Lamb in the slot, if I'm going to get Kevontae Turpin involved, that's going to be in the slot. I kind of limit my available options of being able to utilize Hunter Renfrow. This falls into the Zay Jones bucket for me. If they want to do it, cool. They did something. It's a veteran NFL player. It's super cheap. I'm fine with it. I also won't be in shambles if they don't, the same way I wasn't when they didn't sign Zay Jones. Will Marshall. Sup, Tom? Been a long time. As my expectations were. But with our schedule and lack of all-in moves, I feel like it's a Jerry Jones setup for a rebuild. Might be a Stephen Jones setup. And that's kind of my issue. If you want to rebuild, why are you waiting? You don't have to set up for a rebuild. You just rebuild. That's all you do. You don't do we'll see if we can win 10 games and then rebuild. You just do it. Because if you're rebuilding, if that is their plan, it is a terrible rebuild. Because why are guys like Brandon Cooks and Tank Lawrence, even Dak Prescott and Zach Martin, why are they here? Why did you re-sign a veteran in Jordan Lewis? Why did you sign a veteran in Eric Kendricks? Just play young guys. Veterans don't matter when you're rebuilding. Unless you want 1 or 2 for leadership, do things the right way, but your coach can also do that. So if it is a rebuild, I think it's been a bad process for it. And if it's trying to win games, it's been a bad process. All of it's bad. Toney, who's the next head coach? Zim? Belichick? It's not going to be primetime. I don't want my coach dogging players on Twitter. That is not leadership. I don't care how you slice it. That's not how it's supposed to be done. I think if you get a former player, it's probably more likely to be Witten than it is Deion, which would also be a bad idea, to be clear. my overall point with this Cowboys head coach job, we'll spend more time on it when Mike gets fired, most likely next year. Is this going to be an attractive job? Like, the job security is pretty stable. Who's your quarterback? That's what coaches want these days. That's why Ben Johnson didn't take the Commander's job, because he's like, I'm not sold. I think these coaches will be patient, the good ones. Who's your quarterback? Huge question mark. Who do you want as the next Cowboys head coach? Get those answers in for me in the comments. Really? You went to that one? We got enough girth at running back. We need some speed for these nice long runs. No diddy. Are we going to get flagged on this? Next question. He's actually not wrong. The Cowboys do need speed. Tom, would you be surprised if Zeke ran for 1,000 yards behind this line? Yes, I would be. I'd be very surprised. It would require a large workload and or sudden reappearance of efficiency we haven't seen in almost 5 years. That's just not a bet I'm going to take. Like, he can get to 1,000 yards. It might take him 240 carries. I don't want to give Zeke, this current version of him, that level of carries every game. Like, I don't know if that's an efficient plan for what this team is searching for. And 240 might be an understatement. That's if he is efficient. I think it's just going to not happen. Steven GX, what is the missing piece to get the NFC Championship game? I don't think it's one piece. That's kind of my issue. I don't think it's one piece. I think it's multiple. The biggest thing I think you could change is if you were to go, especially last year, like you had top 10, frankly top 5 quarterback play in the regular season. Your running game was not very good. You had the dynamic number 1 receiver. Your O-line was fine enough. The overall offense was playing well. I think the biggest impactful piece that you didn't have a top 10 piece at was your head coach. He's not top 10. Your quarterback is. Several different players on offense, different position groups are top 10. I don't think your head coach is top 10. That's why I wanted to replace him. I thought he was a liability in the playoffs, because when everything's bad, everything was bad against the Packers, isn't that a coaching issue? And frankly, you got to get some luck to go your way one time. You really haven't had that. And when the margins are thin, you don't win if the ball don't bounce your way, got to get some other advantages elsewhere. From Jordan, who is the Cowboys QB in 2024 or 5? I don't know. Check in again with me like September 1st. Because if Dak is not signed by then, I don't think it's going to happen. Because at that point, you'll have played the entire season. He's weeks away from getting a contract like I don't think we've ever seen. At least being a free agent, the likes of which we haven't seen if he stays healthy and plays at a top 10 level again. Hasn't happened. It truly hasn't. I think that if that does end up occurring, if Trey Lance plays well in the preseason, he might get your first crack. What happens if Lance is bad in the preseason? You can't trust him. Who the hell is your quarterback when you're picking 21st again? I don't know. So do you believe in Trey Lance? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's video. Tyler, if Dallas loses in the wild card / divisional this year, would you extend Dak? If not, what do you do to replace him? If there were a draft QB, you think Dylan Gabriel falls to a mid-20 pick. I don't think Dylan Gabriel is even being mocked as a first-round pick right now. I don't think the league views him in that way. So I think he will be there at 20. I also, if I'm taking a quarterback, I want him to be a top 5 guy. I don't want to gamble on the Kenny Pickett's of the world, you know? If Dak does exactly what he does, let's say it's the exact same scenario as last season. There's going to be a list of teams that are like, Dak will pay you whatever you want in the open market. Because that's all pro quarterback play. That doesn't hit the open market ever. Kirk Cousins is the closest, and he was coming off a torn Achilles, and he got top 10 quarterback money at age 36. Brady was in his final years. Manning was coming off a neck injury. That's kind of my issue, is that Dallas should have already made up their minds. If they weren't going to do it, fine, start the rebuild. And I think it's a very real chance, it's just like last year. And we're all disappointed that that's correct. We should be upset. The market's still going to be a gangbusters pro Dak market. So it's either pay, a lot more than it would have been a year ago, or lose him for a third-round pick. And then you have no idea what your quarterback plan is. I don't like that. I don't like that plan from the Dallas Cowboys. If you have not already, please make sure you guys are subscribed. YouTube.com/Cowboys TV. Hit that sub button for more free Cowboys YouTube videos. Prediction time here. Will the Cowboys win the NFC East? Sorry for being a little bit doom and gloom there, I think, but Jared Goff just got paid. He got $53 million. I mean, okay, Dak's better than Jared Goff is, so there's your market. He gonna get at least $55 million. Which we kind of already knew that, but if you were hoping to get Dak for 50, it's just not gonna happen. That's a lot of money. Lions have paid Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jared Goff all in the same offseason. CT actually did break that news there. Jared Goff's got 4 years, $212 million. It's on a 4-year deal. I am anxious. What happens, Chris, if Trevor Lawrence gets $57 million from the Jags? That's not outside of the range of outcomes. That could happen 2 weeks from now.
Man, I don't know. And the thing is, Dak a couple of weeks ago said he didn't necessarily needed to be the highest paid quarterback in the league.
Jared Goff is the second highest paid quarterback in football now.
But you're telling me that he's going to look at this and be like, well,
I'm better than Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Imagine if you gave me all of those playmakers and good coaches and a ground game for once.
That $60 million might be a real number now.
Again, what happens if Trevor Lawrence gets $55.5 million in 2 weeks? That's a shit ton of money for Jared Goff, who, by the way, already got paid a record-setting or close to the amount of money once, and his team went, nope, we got to change it. Ecuador mentions other teams make mistakes signing Dak. So be it. This is fine. If you don't think Dak's the guy, okay, whatever, then move on, don't pay him. What I honestly don't want this team to do is to sit on their hands for 5 months, not do anything, get to September after all the quarterbacks got paid, or get to January after all the quarterbacks got paid and go, okay, now we'll pay you. You know what the market is. Goff has always been on good teams outside of his first year in LA. He's always been with a great offensive mind. This is the market. So, to steal a line from a movie, either play, or if you think the only way to win is to not do it, then don't play the game. But if you're going to play the game, this is what the market looks like. I kind of think you're going to see Trevor Lawrence get $55, $56, $57 million in a month. And I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. I do. I think he'll be much better this year. I think the supporting cast has failed him. But Ecuador man says Goff in Super Bowl and NFC Championship games. Dak 0. But those are team stats. I still maintain, and it's why the Rams traded away Jared Goff. If they had Dak the first time, they would have won that game, right? For the Rams, that
was one of the most boring Super Bowls ever.
Yeah, I mean he was bad in that game. Which it's the Super Bowl. It's you probably preach the fact that it happened in the first place rather than anything else. But again, we always point to team stats. Does that really mean that much to me? Because, like, you're okay, sure. You know, they made Super Bowl, okay? Justin Herbert has 0 playoff appearances or wins. And he blew a massive lead. He's making $52.5 million. So my main issue has always been we can play that game for like individual guys in the top 5, but there's always somebody who appears and goes, yeah, but he didn't do that. So I've always felt it's never kept consistently. Like, he was bad in that Super Bowl. He was solid-ish against the Niners, and he played well against the Bucs too, and against the Rams in that revenge game for him. Like, he's had good playoff games, so has Dak. You know? If all I'll say is this, his wins in the postseason, the opposing team has never scored more than 23 points. Defense has always played well. Because it's a team sport. It's a team sport. And if you want to argue with the can't pay the quarterback that much money, okay, then don't play the game at all. Which my concern is the Cowboys are going to try to say we're not going to play the game and then play the game at the last second and cost themselves millions of dollars. If they had paid Dak a year earlier like they should have, we wouldn't be in this spot. And you'd probably be paying Dak about $50 million a year right now, and it would look like a damn steal. But they dragged their feet initially, and they're still paying. I mean, shit, if you had done it 2 years earlier, he might be making like $45 million a year. But they always drag their feet on these things. Chris B, actions speak louder than words. Don't think Dak signs. Again, it wouldn't shock me at this point. And if that's your plan, okay, because like Ecuador men don't want to do it. I honestly, and I stand by this, if you weren't planning on paying Dak, I would have traded or cut him. I would have said, you know what? It's time for my team to take back control here. Dak, if you're not going to work with us on the timing of it, honestly, this is bad to say, I might have done him dirty. I might have cut him late in the process. I would let free agency go for a week and then say, okay, we're going to trade you or cut you. Like, I might have played it differently there, you know? I would have started the rebuild the way I wanted to. Geraldo Neary, what happened to Isaac Alarcon? I believe he's still on the 49ers. Let me double check that. He had signed with them after his player pathway program ended. He is back on the 49ers, and I believe he is playing offensive lineman for them. Maybe as a practice squad guy in the end. We've got the Cowboys Report on Instagram. Follow us over there if you haven't already. I'll do a short over there after today's show wraps up about the Jared Goff deal, how that impacts the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, because it's a lot of money for Jared Goff, second highest paid quarterback in the NFL. The market's the market, folks. It's what it's going to cost you. We are losing the May subscriber battle against those pesky Giants fans. Not by a lot. I think we can and should catch them sooner rather than later. So help us continue to grow the Cowboys Report, the #1 YouTube channel for the Dallas Cowboys. Hit that sub button right now. I want to talk about a couple different free agents out there linked to the Cowboys, whether tangibly or speculatively, and the Cowboys remaining unsigned free agents. And that begins with Stephon Gilmore. Remains unsigned, not a lot of traction on his market, but did speak with Josina Anderson about his upcoming free agency. Gilmore said, quote, "I'm still focused on playing, but it has to be the right opportunity. I feel like it's the age of some of these teams. If I was 28, I would have already been signed by now. At the same time, I know the value I still bring. If you watch the tape, I feel like I played well the last 2 years and literally almost played every snap last year. So I'm staying patient while watching my son, who's a wide receiver and quarterback, lock people up on the field with his defensive back skills too." Love the addition there of the kid part, by the way. Look, I think Gilmore's right. If he were 20, he would have been signed. But he's also not 28 years old. So it's not the same when at this point you are 33 years old, you are no longer in your prime, you turn 34 in September, and you're coming off a shoulder injury. So I think he's right, and I think that is a valid concern to have as well. This would, in theory, be his 4th team in as many years, 5 teams in as many years. A couple of years, the Bills played great. Patriots played great. Panthers was a little bit more up and down there. Decent for the Colts, and the Cowboys traded for him, and he played well. Like Gilmore is, I think he is still a good corner. I don't think he wants to sign for pennies on the dollar and be a backup. And in the end, I don't think he has to do that. I think there will be a team that shows enough interest and adds him. There are teams that need cornerback help. I think are worth mentioning. I forgot to mention, by the way, when we went to the teams he played for, those were the hashtags Josina used. I think that was his previous teams, not the teams that were involved with him. I just wanted to clarify that front there. Cornerback-wise, I think you're in good shape. You have Diggs coming off the injury. We'll see about play versus performance. Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson. I'm excited about it as a draft pick. We'll see if Deshaun Wright, Eric Scott do anything. Israel Mukwamu's a piece. Of all the spots, I would have said run it back beyond like quarterback. Cornerback stood out to me as one of them. They didn't pay Lewis very much. If they wanted to, they could pay Gilmore. We'll see if that happens. Maybe after June 1st, when some salary cap space becomes available, a team, whether it's Dallas or somebody else, shows interest there. So would you sign Stephon Gilmore? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off for me in the comment section of today's video. The pinned comment, by the way. So when that comes, ignore the ad instead and go vote. So Bleacher Report had a couple different names they suggested. The one that stood out to me was Donovan Smith, beyond like the guys we've spent time talking about on previous shows. And I get the argument they're trying to make here. It's this. Well, the plan is to have Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe round out the offensive line. The Cowboys would be wise to add some veteran insurance. This is especially true at left tackle, where Guyton is slated to play. The Oklahoma product only has 1 year of starting experience and earned it at right tackle. If his transition doesn't go smoothly, it could create real problems for quarterback Dak Prescott, which I agree with, by the way. Donovan Smith isn't a perfect left tackle, but is a 2-time Super Bowl winner and the top option still available. He put on a 1-year, $3 million deal last season, so he might be open to a team-friendly deal. First off, I hate the offensive tackle wins argument. Like, that's what we're going with? Okay. Anyway, we might not like it, but we must accept it. Dallas has Donovan Smith at home. His name is Chuma Edoga. They have the veteran left tackle option. Edoga in 420 snaps last offseason. 3 sacks, 5 hits, 8 hurries. The run grade wasn't great either. Which, this is my overall point when it comes to Donovan Smith. Name you've heard of. He's played games. He's been a left tackle for Super Bowl team. He sucked last year, guys. I'm sorry. That man got beat a ton. You know how mad we were at Terrence Steele for getting beat a lot in pass protection? Relative to their snaps, Donovan Smith was worse. And he was bad as a run blocker. You know why the Chiefs were like, yeah, we don't want to bring him back even though he was super cheap? Hey, let's gamble on Wanye Morris and Kingsley Suamataia, because Donovan Smith stunk. I thought he was on the decline. He fell apart last year. Chiefs won in spite of him frequently. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think I'd rather have Chuma Edoga in there. Or, you know what? I'd rather see if Matt Waletzko's shoulders don't fall apart for the first time in an offseason. Or if Austin Richards can emerge. And more likely, I would just let Tyler Guyton, battle through his what will have ups and downs. Now, again, there will be ups and downs for him, but you can get his jersey right now. And Dallas's track record when it comes to offensive tackles and offensive linemen in round 1 typically ends up pretty well. Get the Tyler Guyton rookie jersey today over at chatsports.com/Guyton. That link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/Guyton. Again, link in the comments and the description of today's show is through our friends over at Fanatics. I don't fully know what to call Mike Fisher's site these days because he didn't write the article, but his site Cowboys Country, which was Sports Illustrated, now is Athlon Sports too. We'll just call it Cowboys Country. Since the Cowboys signed either Mecole Hardman or Hunter Renfrow. After missing on Zay Jones, which, you know what happens, I'm not necessarily opposed to adding more receiver help. If you could get a good veteran who can at least be, wide receiver 4 and maybe be receiver 3 if you had him to be, I think I have some interest there. The issue is the receivers out there aren't very good. Mecole Hardman has flashed at times. He offers speed. You don't have speed. He was a non-factor for a good portion of the 2023 campaign with both the Jets and the Chiefs, and then it kind of saved his season with the whole, Super Bowl winning catch, which is great, but, I need regular season stuff too. But he does offer speed. Maybe some return value mixed in there too. Hunter Renfrow, a name we all know, the slot receiver. I think we have to consider this as a real possibility. What if Hunter Renfrow's 2021 campaign was the outlier? What if it wasn't just the shitty coaching staff in 2023 and 2022, which it was a bad staff? What if he's just declined? What if that was the outlier year? And I think specifically for Dallas, if this team does plan, as I would plan, on putting CeeDee in the slot for 65% of the snaps and putting Cooks in there some too, and utilizing Turpin as really a slot guy, a gadget guy, how many snaps are actually available for Renfrow at wide receiver? He's a slot receiver too. I would wonder if because of what you have versus what you don't have, maybe gambling on Mecole Hardman makes more sense. So pick a wide receiver. MH for Mecole Hardman, HR for Hunter Renfrow. Sound off where else but the comments. To wrap things up here, I did want to mention the other 2 unsigned Cowboys free agents. I think at least one of them will get signed, if not both at some point between now and camp and the season. First up is Jaron Kearse, who did put up 72 tackles last year, 4 PBUs, and not everyone agrees with me, and that's fine. It's good to not have unanimous stuff because that normally means we're all wrong. I don't want him back. I thought he was a liability far too often last year. I think we mentioned that outlier year for Renfrow. The outlier year happened a few seasons ago for Jaron Kearse. I think at best, he's safety 5. Give me Malik Hooker. Give me Donovan Wilson. Give me Marquise Bell. I love Israel Mukwamu. I believe in Wanye Thomas. I'm keeping all those guys. And maybe Josh Berry ends up playing more corner, but we'll put him at safety for now because numbers game. Or maybe I'll just put Mukwamu. I don't know where Mukwamu's going to play. Is he corner or safety? Same with the Berry. Anyway, I don't need Jaron Kearse, so I'm out on him. Sean McEwen. I think the role you would have for him can be filled by someone like Brevin Spann-Ford, who, by the way, given their years of playing time, would be cheaper and younger than Sean McEwen. I don't need a tight end. I have Jake Ferguson as tight end 1. Very excited for him in year 3, by the way. I spent a second-round pick on Luke Schoonmaker. Not great. Hendershot, John Stevens could fight for a spot. And I would not sleep on Brevin Spann-Ford, whether it's tight end 4, whatever, carving out a role for this Cowboys team. So before we go, name a free agent who you want the Cowboys to sign. Sound off for me in the comments section. Can also vote in the pin poll. I'm glad I went with C because the majority agree with me. 17% say A or B, 37% say C, 32% say D, 15% say F. So less than 20% of the Cowboys fans watching are giving it an A/B grade. Can't say I'm too surprised from that one there. So grade the Cowboys running back room A, B, C, D, or F. No need for a loop today, by the way, Chris. It's not enough there. We'll get to Will Marshall and Chris B's super chat before we sign off here. Will Marshall, $5. Thank you, Will. I appreciate that, my friend. Says anything can happen. With the opponents we have this season, Baltimore, Niners, etc., we realistically have a losing record by the bye week. Stephen Jones rebuild. We will know for certain what the schedule looks like once we get to Wednesday when the schedule comes out. It's not outside the range of possibilities. A bunch of tough games on this schedule. I'm going to guess. We'll see what the schedule looks like. I'm going to guess my prediction will be like about 9 or 10 wins. I thought they would be at 500 going to the bye last year or close to it. And that's about what they were. And then they got to the easier part. Yeah, very real possibility there, Will. Chris B, at least the leaves are falling. Effing clowns. This is a reference to Jared Goff getting $53 million a year from the Detroit Lions. Not the highest paid guy. And, maybe, I don't know if Dak would have taken $53 million or not, but, they're trying. Dallas is not trying. There are differences there. If you have not already, follow the Cowboys Report on Instagram. I will put up some thoughts on the Jared Goff signing over there here in about 5 minutes. Go follow that at Cowboys Report IG. And, of course, if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to us here at the Cowboys Report. YouTube.com/Cowboys TV. Of note, no live Thursday show. We will have the schedule video for you Wednesday. Record prediction for you out Thursday morning, but no live show. I'll be at Valhalla at the PGA Championship, so I'm gonna do that instead. So we'll still have videos though every single day, multiple times per day. Hit that sub button right now.